In this episode, we'll discuss why is diagnosing a-holes so dangerous, healthy escapism and unhealthy escapism, the good news of being a little lost each day, the durability factor, not trying for an experience, and why it's wise to focus on being effective over being efficient. Now, here are some things to ponder. Have you ever interacted with someone and thought, gosh, is that person ever an a-hole? When you diagnose someone as an a-hole, how do you do it objectively, and how do you know that you are not complicit in being an a-hole yourself? So consider the scenario that you've effectively diagnosed someone as an a-hole and that you refuse to see your own a-holism. What's the guaranteed result of an a-hole on a-hole battle? How do you ensure you don't become the very thing you despise so deeply? Now, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. By taking this little quiz, you will discover exactly where you're making your life unnecessarily difficult and exactly where your behaviors are cutting you from the outcomes and goals you crave most. Your quiz results will pinpoint with precise accuracy the exact areas to focus on. This will immediately activate your ability to use your time and resources effectively and instantly set you on your path to create higher level gains with, you know what we want, less strain. Why not get down to the base and discover the truth about what's controlling your life right now? I challenge you. Take a few minutes. You owe it to yourself. You are worth it, and your experience of life depends on it. Give yourself the gift by honoring yourself and taking 5 minutes to invest in yourself. Take the Maximize Your Life quiz now at www.jameshepner.com/quiz and finally set yourself on the path that will lead you directly to what you want and need most now. Welcome to Weekly Wins and Losses. My name is James Hepner, former real estate entrepreneur turned self-development hacker, coach, and fulfillment strategist. Each week, we bring you a thought to wrestle with that'll help you live fully alive and gain more life. Real life is made up of both wins and losses. Both were designed for your good. That's basic reality. Without facing and learning how to embrace your losses for greater gain, you miss out. You leave 50% of your life experience on the table. So with that, let's begin the show. Well, welcome friends. Today I have with me a live one. This is one that I've been waiting for a while. He's a real one. He's a live one. Jeremy Sherman is a psychoproctologist. Jeremy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, nice to meet you. Nice to call you a friend. Let's talk.
Let's talk. And you know what's interesting when you say let's talk, when I watch some of your videos online, I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm just talking with him already. He is a friend without me even knowing who I am or even really who he is. I don't really have reference for, but I feel like I know this dude. I get him because he plays with the nuance of life, not to complicate, to simplify and really get us to understand that. And of course, proctologist is someone that deals with a body part down under. And so it's like, wait a minute, like, you know, we can all be these people. We can all be assholes in life sometimes. And here's a man of my own heart. He gets right to it. He just basically says, hey, listen, let's just really be about the real stuff. So Jeremy, well, actually, before we go on, I'm just going to introduce, because I just really want the listeners to hear kind of your background and what you're all about. So here we go. You are a PhD and you are a weekly winner and loser. That goes right in line with Weekly Wins and Losses, our program. So that's good. And you research the emergence from chemistry of winning and losing, the evolution of winning and losing, and way up at the human scale. The mess made by people who insist that they are eternal winners. Oh my goodness, which is close to your definition, Jeremy, of a-holes, in brackets, absolute jerks. He has written 1,000 blog articles for Psychology Today, and for 25 years has worked closely with Harvard Berkeley research. Now, what's also really interesting, sorry.
Go ahead. With a Harvard Berkeley neuroscientist, biological anthropologist, Terrence Deacon. I haven't worked with Berkeley and Harvard so much as I've collaborated closely with this origins of life, origins of language researcher at Berkeley.
Love it. Thanks for that little connection. That's appreciated. Okay. Jeremy has taught most of the social sciences at a college level, and he's also taught advertising and marketing in MBA programs. His first career was environmental activism, and he has a master's in public policy from Berkeley and a PhD in decision theory. At 24, he was elected elder on the world's largest hippie commune. He's been lucky to have been able to enjoy many rides in life's amusement park. There you go. He has 3 published books. First, Neither Ghost Nor Medicine, and it's the emergence.
No, neither ghost nor machine.
Oh, sorry, machine. Thank you. This is going to be fun because you're nicely going to pull me out of my ass and correct me. The Emergence and Nature of Selves, and that's 2017. And he has 2 self-published books, Negotiate with Yourself and Win, Doubt Management Skills for People Who Can Hear Themselves Think. In 2021, he wrote, And What's Up with A-Holes? How to Spot and Stop Them Without Becoming One. And one piece that I think is fabulous, they all are, but one of them that I think is just, it shows that the world is listening, and you got the ear of a whole bunch of people, and it's real ears. It's not just these fantasy play ears. You've written 1,000 blog articles for Psychology Today, averaging 10,000 page views a piece. So I think that's just fantastic. So Jeremy, talk to me. How did you get about this work about, again, proctologist, psychoproctologist? How did you come up with this? This is just intensely creative, and I love it so much.
Well, I should say I had to pick a light name for a serious subject. I got really interested in how you diagnose, treat, and prevent assholery. But I also recognize that diagnosing assholery is really dangerous. Some of the worst people in the world assumed that they were experts on who's the assholes. Hitler thought that he knew exactly who the assholes were. Stalin did too. So I got into this work, I would guess in a way through the political work I was doing, but also some of it was social as well. So I was an environmental activist, and I was very interested in politics and studied public policy and all of that. But somewhere around 25 years ago, I got interested in a question that was basically like a koan for me. What is a butthead, since it can't just be whoever you happen to butt heads with? That is, everybody thinks they know assholes when they see them, and in general, their assumption is that anybody who gives them a particularly difficult time or is resistant or obstinate or stubborn by their standards, their subjective standards, was an asshole. And the problem we are facing in this world is that there's an awful lot of asshole on asshole battle. That is, people who are convinced that their opponents are the real assholes, and that we hadn't really done much work on diagnosing more objectively. So I got interested in that question, I would say in part for personal reasons, but also for political reasons. And in the meantime, about around 25 years ago, I also got very interested in tough judgment calls, how to deal with these difficult dilemmas where you let's say, to simplify them down, you have 2 choices about what to do, and either choice could really win or really lose. That is, either choice could be the right choice or the wrong one. So I got really interested in doubt and dilemmas and tough judgment calls. And then the other thing that was happening to me around this time is that I fell in with this Harvard neuroscientist who had just completed important work on what makes humans so different. He was explaining the evolution of language and how radically different humans are as a result of having language, which other organisms don't have. They have other systems of interpretation, but language is distinct. And he had just turned his attention to the whopper of a question, the hugest question that we overlook in the sciences.
Mhm.
which is basically what are selves and trying. So let me just unpack that briefly. Selves try, they struggle for their own existence. Non-selves, inanimate things, computers, chemicals, all those things, don't try. They're not trying to do anything. But there's no denying that even the simplest organism is trying to stay alive. And so he's not a philosopher, he's a scientist, and he was trying to figure out what trying is from its origins and how it came about. So we've been working together now for 25 years very closely on explaining how you get effort from work. That is, chemistry works, and we're nothing but chemistry, and yet we make effort, which is a distinct kind of work. So so that ended up becoming kind of a foundation for all of my work, is an understanding. We have a model for how trying emerges from non-trying, how selves emerge from non-selves. And it has grounded all of the work I do way up at these high levels where I mostly work, which is in, you could say, psychology and sociology, is that unlike other psychologists, other social scientists, I have an explanation for what motivation and effort really are. Those are the common currencies in psychology. And yet, if you ask a psychologist what a motivation is, they can only tell you its consequence. Well, motivation generates effort. They can't actually tell you what it is. They know what happens in a body. They know it can be triggered by chemicals, but chemicals don't have motivations. So this ends up being this, it's not complicated work, but it's unfamiliar. Here we are, self-obsessed, really trying to figure out what to try to do. And yet very few of us ever step back to ask what a self is and what trying is. Trying is something different. It's a different phenomena from nothing but chemistry. And so, and it's just fascinating to watch how this plays out in academics. So a physicist could never tell his class, her class, that the moon is trying to pull on the tides. That would be considered, that's just not allowed. And yet right down the hall, a life or social scientist can talk all the time about trying and effort. And yet we have this great big gap down the middle of the sciences, and it's surprising how few researchers even attempt to explain how trying emerges from non-trying.
So why don't we start with, what is motivation? First question, what is motivation? Second question, how does trying emerge from non-trying?
Great.
So the question is, how do we strengthen both our mind and body effectively? Maybe I should add, why is strengthening our mind and body even something that we might want to seriously consider implementing on a daily basis? It's all about maximizing your opportunities, maximizing your ability to experience a rich life instead of a mediocre life, maximizing your ability to bring to yourself and others around you what you were set on this earth to deliver and enjoy. What's not to love about stretching yourself and experiencing the truth about the incredible capacity that you actually have? Listen, I really value you, and I want to help you maximize your life by sharing a few of the specific strategies that have made all the difference in my life. I want you to feel mentally and physically strong so you'll be well prepared when you are most needed, so that your mind and body will be entrained to know exactly what to do when others are running for the exit signs, and so that you'll activate your ability to easily identify the opportunity no matter how challenging the situation. So, I've carefully put together a well-curated resource that will make it super easy for you. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com/self-help hacker, where you will be able to see some of my favorite books and specific biohacking modalities, supplements, and biohacking experiences that will allow you to feed your mind and body the specific and exact ingredients that will give you the mental and physical edge. Now, I should note, you'll see listed a grouping of biohacking experiences like whole body cryotherapy, bone density, etc., that you can experience at our biohacking lab located on the west coast of Canada in White Rock, BC. If you live nearby, feel free to book your session as you wish. Also, you'll want to take note of the specific discount code section that allows you to purchase products from my favorite vendors anywhere from 10 to 25% off by simply using the discount code JAMES. I hope you enjoy. To your life force, to your strength, here we go. So why don't we start with what is motivation? First question, what is motivation? Second question, how does trying emerge from non-trying?
Okay, so let me unpack trying by saying that it's a kind of work, and I'm going to say that it's work that works to keep a chemical system working in its workplace. Mm-hmm. That's a lot, but it packs it all in. So work that works is effort that is functional, is good for, it wins. So the work that works. The second one is basically about value. Nothing is of value to chemicals. Nothing appears to have been of value to anything for the first 10 billion years in the universe. And suddenly when you have cells that are working to keep working, that's my definition of a self or a being. And being is a great word because it's both a verb and a noun. I am in the business of being a being. That is, I have to hustle all day to keep myself being a being. An example is that every second right now, you are generating 2.7 million new cells. That's 240 billion new cells a day. You're doing that without feeling it or consciousness of it. You're not thinking about it or feeling it. That's your hustle to work, the work you have to do to keep on working. And why you have
to keep on winning towards the emotions that I want, that will bring me the feels that will generate my life experience.
I'm going deeper than that. I'm saying
perfect,
that even
I'm just slowing it down, and then you're going deeper. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm saying a tree has to hustle to stay in place.
Yeah, I love it.
A single cell organism has to do it. They have no feelings. They're not trying for experience. That's not what they do, but they do struggle for their own existence, and they're struggling against the most universal tendency in the entire universe, which is for things to fall apart. That is, if you think about what happens to a corpse, it's completely non-functional, and you couldn't restore it a few minutes after it dies. So the hustle we have to do every day just to keep ourselves in the business of being alive is us running to stay in place against a universe that is actually degenerating everything. Durable things don't have this problem. They degenerate really slowly. We're incredibly fragile. So we have to do this kind of hustle. So work that works to keep a system working in its workplace. So I want to,
so just give me a second.
Take your time.
So you say us humans, we need to continue about the hustle.
Yeah, we never have left it.
Yeah, we never have left it. A tree doesn't need to hustle for an experience. It just is the experience.
No, it's not. I would leave experience out of it for the moment. That's way up at the level of feelings and thought. Okay. I'm saying to stay in existence, there are two ways that things exist. One is by durability. A rock just is. It's not doing any work to keep itself going. A computer isn't doing any work to keep itself going. A self, a being, is doing work to keep working. And it does apply at the level of experience. That is, we do today what we hope wins us the ability to do tomorrow. That's where the wins and losses come in. And now all of this applies way up at the level of experience, feeling, and thought. But I want to make sure that we're very clear on this. A plant has to do this. This is what I have in common with plants, that I have to run to just keep from degenerating. Those cells aren't the half of it. The 240 billion cells I'll make on my slouchiest day, that's not, I'm just doing all sorts of stuff, and I don't know I'm doing it. I don't feel myself doing it. Actually, my experience is mostly that my body is a station wagon for my feelings and my mind. I'm so well covered by you could say society or civilization that I ignore my body most of the time. I'm a real mind and feeling kind of guy. But one of the things my mind has realized is that no, my body ain't a station wagon. It ain't durable at all. It has to keep on repairing itself all the time. It's way more fundamental than self-reproduction. Make kids or not, you can't make kids if your body is degenerated. And think about it. If a body stops hustling to regenerate itself, it's dead meat in seconds, in minutes. So it's so that's an interesting background. Now you said, how would that ever come about? So if you look at that, I said, work that works to keep a chemical system working in its workplace. That boils down to 4 traits that all had to pop out together at the same time, which is it's effort, work, that works, functions, it's good for, bad for, a being, that is to keep you working, and interpretation, that is responding to changes in your circumstances. So functional, this is selves making functional interpretive effort. And you have to explain all 4. Chemistry, which does none of that. Chemistry is not a self. Chemistry is not doing anything good or bad for. It's not making effort, and it's not interpreting. And so that's just framing up the question. And we have a very simple chemical model, classical physics, basically for how you get this going. I don't want to get into the details of it here. It's not that hard. It's basically a chain reaction that makes chain reaction seeds. And if you break open one of those seeds, it starts making the chain reaction again that makes more chain reaction seeds. I mean, that's detailed in our work, but the main point to come out of it, there's something related to your work, your focus, that I'd like to focus on. It takes energy to regenerate myself, but energy is actually what degenerates us. When you think about it, I have to restore order in my body all the time. I have to, keep it lined up, keep my shit together. But that takes energy. And energy, when you think about it, energy does not by itself bring about order. A hurricane does not usually, alphabetize your bookcase. So that creates a paradox where I have to be very selectively interactive. All organisms have to take in the energy that they can use to regenerate themselves and keep out the energy that would degenerate them. And you can say this is like the most fundamental tough judgment call that life has to face. It's not facing it consciously, it's not facing it with feelings, but even the first organism, for it to survive, has to take in the energy it can use to regenerate itself and keep out the energy it could that would degenerate it. And when you think about that up at the level of consciousness or experience, we keep out the feelings that feel bad, like they'll degenerate our motivations. We take in the energy that feels the feelings that feel good. So we talk about this actually in science. The technical terms for it are yuck and yum. Yuck and yum. That is, you keep out the yuck and you keep in the yum, and you apply that up at the level of humans and language and concepts. What does it become? It becomes confirmation bias. As we'll take in the ideas that affirm us and keep out the ideas that disaffirm us. It's confirmation bias is a problem we all have to manage, and assholes treat confirmation bias as the solution to all their problems. It's as simple as that.
Wow. Yeah, that's a brainful. That holy smokes. Okay, this is you know what I love. So not to reduce what you're saying, but I think what I'm tapping into is that it all really boils down to, and again, I'm going to make this overtly simplistic. You're going to laugh at me probably, but and so I'm not a reductionist by nature. For me, I like playing with nuance. Like I said prior to the call, I think I mentioned this. To me, nuance is not so as to complicate, but it is designed so that we can simplify. And so we do this nuance play so that we can help people to understand. We're not trying to distance people from a deep understanding of what's going on. But what you just did is you nicely brought us through some of the technicalities. And again, I'm not trying to reduce, and please help me out here. But so one of the things that I'm hearing you say is most of this comes through the lens of how durable is this? Whatever we're working, how durable is this? And what it comes down to, and I love the last piece you focused on, energy, which is energy also degenerates energy. And so that energy, like you said, doesn't in and of itself bring order, because we have, like you said, the yuck and the yum. And so in relation to what creates assholes, like you say, confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is choosing the preference. Do I choose the good or do I choose the bad? Do I choose the right? Do I choose the wrong? And so constantly in willpower mode. And so the durability factor is directly impacted by the work we do. Help me understand. Is it that we can actually help our energy be more, because the way I understand it is we can actually help our energy be more efficient so that it doesn't have to do a bunch of gatekeeping tasks all the time. Now, naturally, energy doesn't bring order, like you say, so it'll always degenerate to some degree. But would you say that we can upregulate? Because the work that I do, weekly wins and losses, is all about taking people and taking what so often we do with a feeling. We bring a thought to it, and then the thought, because the feeling only lasts like a few seconds, max of 90 seconds. We bring a thought to it, and then that thought we bring to it creates the emotion. And that emotion that we have with the thought that we created now creates a state or a mood. And so what I do is I reverse engineer, and we begin to ask ourselves which emotions are unsafe. And so we bring safety to all emotions. And the reason we want to do this, to your point, is we want to see, and there's more than just confirmation bias. We have like many biases. The confirmation bias, like you say, that's the assholism. That's the people that think they know it all. And it's like we've solved for, you look at these people who are like, this is definitely right, and this is definitely wrong, but most of it's perspective truth. It's not universal. So weekly wins and losses is to take the feels, like the deep feel of like, I won or I lost, and not try to make it anything different, but be in the present moment of that and not try to sort and to shift out. And so would you say that we can, based on your research, that we can actually upregulate the effectiveness of the energy that we're drawing from life in itself through our emotions and feelings, just by doing proper work to be in the gray, but feeling it all, but not labeling it good or bad, right or wrong?
That's a jump that I would want to unpack, and here's why. Often people have the formula that they're working on or developing or cultivating for how to manage this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I describe this work, they want to see whether or not this work affirms the hunches they're working on. Now, there are some parallels, I think, to be drawn here between what you're describing. Let me see if I can capture what you're describing. Yes, obviously, we are working, you could say that there's a something fundamental in physics, which is called the least work principle. And it plays out in, it's basically, if water is going to roll downhill, it's going to roll down the path of least resistance, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get into organisms, you could say, yes, we are all working on labor saving. That is anything that is a more efficient way to do things is something we will tend to opt for better or for worse. That is, it's way easier, it's way more efficient to play God than it is to be human. So that's one of the appeals of being an asshole, is actually you get to play God if you can get away with it. So a lot of my work is also on how to keep them from getting away with it. But yes, I have to recognize, I mean, for example, we say crime doesn't pay. That's not true. Crime pays really well if you get away with it. And I'd say the same for being an asshole. It's a path of least resistance. It's an extremely efficient thing for an individual. Whether it's good or not is a different matter. But if you're talking about looking for labor savings or upregulating, yes, there's obviously we'd all be looking for that. Now, your particular formula around it, I have I have a sense of what you're saying. This may parallel, and it also gets me into the question of wins and losses in my personal life. So when I was first playing with these high-level academics, having had a second career, it being a second career for me, I suffered a lot of imposter syndrome, and I'd be in these meetings with academics, and I would be distracted by worries that I was going to lose, that I was going to say something dumb, or that I wouldn't be able to, that I wouldn't be familiar with the academics they're referring to, and all of that. And this was a tame academic crowd. There are some crowds where they'll just pounce on you. It's all just a bunch of chest beating and name dropping and all of that. This was an easy crowd, but I still had that nervousness. And I realized I wanted to be able to engage in serious play, by which I mean highly constrained questions, but playful within the context of those questions. And I was having trouble with the playful side because I felt like there were landmines in the room, that if I didn't watch out, if I didn't say the right thing, I would end up feeling punked and foolish. And then I'd have these feelings I'd be dealing with for a while afterwards. And I came up with something that actually has been very useful to me ever since, which is I look at the worst case scenario. I ask myself, well, what's the worst that can happen? And I don't mean that as a rhetorical question. I'd actually pinpoint, what landmines am I afraid of? And I would come up with a story I could tell myself that finessed it. That is, yeah, that thing happened. And a story that would enable me to keep my dignity. And I still was trying to avoid hitting those landmines, but there was a lot for me in being able to relax into saying, yeah, if that should come to pass, I actually have a story that finesses it for me. Now, is the story, would the story convince everybody else? Not necessarily, but people are mostly polite and they'll humor you. So there was a way in which it enabled me to relax, to think about what's the worst that could happen, and actually to meditate on it and come up with a way that I could maintain my dignity through it. Is that related to what you're talking about? I'm probably indirectly. I want to say that there are losses that feel bad for more than a few minutes, obviously. But I mean, you know, if you're, I find feelings extremely convincing. And that's one of the challenges we face. And they would have evolved to be very convincing. And the problem with feelings also is that there are a whole lot of false alarms. That is, you can be really upset about something that turns out not to be that threatening to you, and you can be really calm about things that are actually quite threatening to you. You know, heroin makes you feel like full of confidence. Yeah, so, and spinach doesn't taste that great compared to ice cream. So yeah, the feelings are not a great guide, and yet they're very convincing. I find that one of the more fundamental paradoxes we deal with is that yuck and yum are not great guides. They're okay guides to what's good for you and what's bad for you. In terms of right and wrong, though, I want to say I totally believe in right and wrong. I believe that right and wrong are yeah, I mean, once you've got a self that's trying to do something, then there is right and wrong. I'm not talking about moral right and wrong, but we're talking about good or bad, functional or non-functional.
Good job.
That stuff's in there. So I'm done pretending there is no right or wrong. I think what's good or what's right is real, but I think that right and good are real, but what's right and what's good is open to a whole lot of debate.
But
good. No one could convince me that it's right to believe that there's no wrong or right. No. Once you've got selves, there's winning and losing.
Yeah, there's winning and losing. Okay, so here's a thought, right? And so actually, before I prime up this question, what had you have need inside your life to do some work on perhaps something that once took you down? So, for example, choosing to be more significant, choosing to show up with significance, choosing to be like, well, and you framed it with the term, and you said dignity. So you a couple of years ago, whenever you did this work, you came up with dignity. So you matured from a need of something towards dignity. what was it that had you mature? Because human beings typically are like, hey, listen, am I seen? Am I heard? And so often, you know, and it often, you know, happens at a very young age where the need to serve another is met with, yeah, but who am I? And am I important in all of this? And so all of a sudden now significance rises, and we look for significance and certainty before we enjoy the uncertainty, and before we experience and bring love, contribution, and growth. So what was it about? So just preface for the audience here. What was it in your experience that had you, and just in my language, I would say, when you come up with dignity, that word to me, you will have stress tested, you will have been brought through a season of life, or something will have transpired in your world where you could safely hold your need for, I don't want to say importance, but you know, it encapsulated and fell into the term dignity for you. What was that experience that likely had you engage in all of this work?
Yeah, great question, and I have a solid answer to it. I should say that I picked the word dignity kind of casually here, and I have something fundamental in my work. We have a tendency to associate. There are morally loaded terms. Dignity sounds like a good thing. Love sounds like a good thing. I don't actually think of them that way anymore. They're moves, they're behaviors that we engage in. And they have their place. I want to get them in the right place. I want to have the right dignity, not the wrong dignity. I want to have the right love, not the wrong love. I want to have the right caring, not the wrong caring. And I think one of the biggest problems we deal with right now in morality is what I'll call the tuck and duck strategy for dealing with morality, which is if a word sounds good, you want to tuck yourself under it. And if a word sounds bad, you want to duck it. And so this become a really big deal for me. So here's an example of how dignity cuts both ways. There's a line from Kurt Vonnegut where someone says, you know, they say that by the year 2000, there's going to be 6 million people. And another guy snarks, he says, yeah, and I bet they're all going to want their dignity. Which I think is just a sweet line. It's a poignant line. So, but here's the personal story. I was fucking self-obsessed for my first 40 years.
There you go.
And part of it was that that I had inherited money at a young age. And unlike most of the people, no, I can't say that, but I can say that it made me feel ashamed and very uncomfortable. This was during the counterculture years, and I took that stuff seriously and was very worried about equality. And there was a way in which, even though inheriting money should free you up, or that's the theory behind it, in my case, it constrained me a whole lot. I felt like I better figure out a way to prove that I'm as worthwhile as Martin Luther King, because that's the only way I could possibly justify this inheritance. It wasn't that big an inheritance. This was enough that I could do anything I want, but not nothing. That is, I had to, that's not quite right. What it meant is that I could choose what I do with my day. And most of my work has actually not been very well paying. Needless to say, writing books and articles, blog articles, doesn't pay well. But I'm so in that way, since I'm subsidized. And it really, I was an anxious bunny anyway. And so I remember at about 30, 35, a friend saying to me, you know what I wish for you, Jeremy? I wish you'd just fuck up really badly one time.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you'd realize that no one's actually paying that close attention. No one's monitoring you that closely. They're all obsessed with their own issues.
Yeah, you're not on the front page newspaper every day. So hello, right? So I get that.
That's right. That's right. So what happened ultimately, I had a really, shortly after that guy said that wonderful comment from a friend, it did happen. My marriage fell apart. My work as an activist was proving ineffectual. And at the time I felt like it was ineffectual in comparison to other organizations. By now I would say that the kind of social activism we were doing back then, environmental stuff like that, we were, you could say for motivation's sake or for whatever reason, we were naive about how much we were up against. That as a member of this culture that believed that we were all going to get wiser and more enlightened, and that you could just wake people up to how to live right, and people would go for it. I had my firstborn son. I have 3 children, and my firstborn son was proving to me that no, people aren't these educatable units who you can just wake up by showing them the true way, or the healthy way to live, or the Buddhist or spiritual way to live. No, you can't really begin to do moral philosophy unless you recognize that 3 to 5% of us are psychopaths, and the rest of us are very tempted to be assholes if we can get away with it. So it was a kind of a sobering for me. So my activism was failing, my marriage was failing, and my firstborn son was in deep trouble, and it somehow really plummeted my spirits. And around that time, I got interested in evolutionary psychology, and then I ended up getting interested in decision theory, how people shop among interpretations. And basically what I did is I found something more interesting to do with myself, and I got over the question of how I'm doing. So I feel just very lucky to be able to have done this, but I don't spend much time thinking about how I'm doing. I get a fair amount of fan mail. I get a fair amount of hate mail. By now there's a large enough population of both, and they're not really interesting to me. I'm really interested in the work. And part of this is also that I was working with this total nerd who wasn't melodramatic. They called him a genius and a saint at Harvard. And the saint part was that he'd talk with anybody. He wasn't pulling rank. He never pulls rank on me. He's just interested in the ideas, and the ideas simply upstaged my interest in how I'm doing. And in a way, you get over the question, what's wrong with me, when you stop feeling like so much is wrong with you.
So if you don't mind, I got a thought, and I want to just ring it by you and see what your thinking is on this. My listeners, they kind of know my journey. I exited part 1 of my journey more than a decade ago. It was a suffering journey. Let's say it like this, right? And like you, not unawares to me, I was an asshole. Bank accounts were great. I got away with stepping on people, not meaning to necessarily, but hey, I mean, I was getting my needs and my desires met. And so I went through my journey. And so there you are. So to relate, there you were, you went through your journey, you had a boy, you had a marriage. When things started falling apart, it's interesting, right? Like, so not to bring morality into the picture or God talk. However, it's a little like this. So where does a person find goodness? Does a person find goodness just in the light or in the darkness as well? Right? Goodness can be found wherever. And so I don't want to go too deep on the weeds on that. The only thing is this, right? As your life is falling apart, as you're hitting these doubts, as you're hitting these places, I have this little thing where I help my people reverse engineer. So I take them through kind of like a mini formula. It's not a proven theory, but this is how my life worked. So I'm just listening to your narration and your journey. And this is what I always say to my people. I say, listen, pain and pressure is a privilege, because pain is simply, please accept inner nudgings. When I exited my journey back over a decade ago, the first part of my journey, that suffering journey, I remember thinking, holy smokes, my life's changed so dramatically. And I went from living a hell for like 2.5 years. I checked out of life. And all of a sudden I'm living in not a utopia, but just an amazing, like incredible, full of gratitude. And I'm experiencing so much. And then I check in with myself one day and I think to myself, James, honestly, you're going to have to be careful that you don't recreate that suffering that you had earlier, because look at the difference that this made. And so while I was driving my car, I looked down at the dashboard and I saw there was check engine light was flashing. And I thought, hey, wait a minute, how could I create and bring myself towards what I've become addicted to, which is massive growth and discovery and the resurrection, the ascension into a new way of thinking, the being, like you said, the suffering part, pressure came. And so what happened for me is I just said, listen, pain is please accept inner nudgings. That's the acronym. And so this is what I think. Tell me what you think. pressure and pain is a privilege, because here's what happens. Pain creates pressure. Pressure creates presence. Presence creates purpose. So put this through your experience. Purpose creates passion. And the passion, of course, is what fuels you towards a good life. Like if you were to relate, like when I listen to your story, so this is, of course, so we just slowed it down for half a second, and you're just relating, going back to what created this beast, like this, and I'm going to say beneficial beast. I'm not trying to activate a confirmation bias in you, but I'm just saying you're someone that gets to the undertow of reality, right?
Yeah, I have ambivalence about pain, and as I have ambivalence about pleasure. We were just talking about this a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're,
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. Yeah, but please unpack why you're ambivalent to pain.
Oh, every organism is, and I mean, so my take is a little different.
Please.
You tell a story that is, it is an archetype. It's a trend. It is the most popular archetype out there. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I went through pain. That is, any romantic story about having transformed, any fictional story, any popular story has this shape, and it's a fundamental human appetite we would have for this.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think that what we would like most of all is to end up safe and free on some plateau.
Because we were all anxious about dying, which we all will.
Right, that's right. So
right.
There's that. So the other day I wrote this up as a dialogue. 3 dialogues that are exactly the same except for one difference.
Yeah.
Except for a venue. So it's one guy saying, hey, let's make a movie. What kind? A popular one. Let's write a screenplay. What should we do? And by the end of it, they come up with, okay, you're gonna have a person you like go through pain, and they rise out of it and live happily ever after. And the next one is, hey, let's invent a religion. What kind? A popular one. Exactly the same story. The third one, hey, let's create a political movement. Exactly the same story. That is, and they go through it saying that let's make it so that he lives happily ever after. They live happily ever after. Yeah, but to really pump it up, let's make it go through some stress and pain so that so you really feel the joy when you get to this romantic happily ever after ending. So that is a popular formula.
And it's a formula that actually, to some degree, and you and I both know this, it's to a large degree, our capacity for joy is stored within our capacity for pain. It's true, but keep going deeper. I love this. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not there. What I said was different than that, which is that in my case, what happened is I found some work that feels good enough to me. Mm-hmm. And I put it out there, but I'm mostly just taking notes on realities best I can. And that feels like a useful thing for me to do with my discretionary energy.
Would you say that's how you find and feel and keep yourself most safely grounded in the humility that you are?
Let me actually answer that specifically. I think you'll find this useful. You mentioned before, you noticed that I described myself as a fallibilist ironist, or an ironic fallibilist. And these are 2 words that have come to mean a lot to me, and they come right out of this origins of life research. Mm-hmm. So fallibilism is a term in philosophy, and I distill it down to, no matter how confident I am in a bet, I remain still more confident that it is a bet. That is, it's simply the recognition that every organism can fail. That is, that losses are fundamental.
You're playing a game, you're not the game.
It ain't a game. It's dead fucking serious. And
but what I'm saying is you keep yourself at knowing exactly your position.
No, I'm not saying that. You can try to put words in my mouth, but I want to make sure that I get clear. Okay.
Okay, say it again. Say it again, because I'm understanding, okay. but I'm trying for the listeners another angle. Go ahead.
Okay. So trying means you make a focused effort. You channel energy into a particular work instead of some other work. You make a bet on what counts. Not everything. The idea of being completely open to whatever, that's what psychotics do. It's not actually a healthy way to live. You end up placing bets. You end up committed to habits. I would say that you could call it love or addiction. Either word means the same thing from my perspective. They both mean doing dedicated work to maintain something that you depend upon. The difference between a love and addiction is basically a bet about how you think it'll come out. If you think that a relationship is going to not end well for both parties, you might say they're addicted to each other. If you think it's going to turn out well, you say that they love each other. But we all place these bets, and the bets can fail. And this is where the irony comes in. So irony is an interesting word. There's dozens of different definitions of it, but think about what an ironic situation is. Ironic situation is where things come out the opposite of what you expected. You thought you were doing the right thing. It turns out, ironically, the wrong thing. You thought you'd make a bad bet, and ironically, it came out right. That's what we tend to mean by an ironic situation. So what is an ironic attitude? An ironic attitude is the recognition that all beings have this problem. Any organism can bet right and have it come out wrong. And what happens if it comes out wrong? They and their entire lineage dies. That is, anybody who follows them is gone because they're gone, let's say. Or more, take it at the human level, if you bet right and it comes out wrong, you can die. It is dire. It is also slapstick. If you think about what slapstick is, it is an ironic move. Think about banana peels. You think you're going to tread on friction, and instead you slip on a banana and fall on your ass. That is an ironic situation. That is, you bet right because most of the ground is actually gives you plenty of friction. You slip on a banana peel, and in this one situation, it turned out wrong. So an ironic fallibilist, it's a tragic comic stance about life. This is dead serious. It really matters. It doesn't matter from my perspective. It doesn't matter to the universe. It doesn't matter to anyone overseeing the universe. It matters to us, though. I've got major skin in this game, which makes it not just a game. It really matters how things come out. I'm trying to bet right. But I also recognize that I have nothing more than bets. I cannot find a formula. This I think of as the biggest cosmic wedgie from Darwin.
Oh, that's so good. You know what? I love this so much. Anytime we lean on pattern living, we know to some degree our body wants it. So I think we have to get in there, or it's best if we get in there and we scratch the record and we bring new ways of experiencing or living life into, because if not, it's like the wedgie, it's like pattern living. We're going to fall asleep.
No. I disagree. And let me tell you why.
Please, yep.
We have no choice but pattern living. You just said a line that you have said before. I have no choice but pattern living. What I said about the alternative to pattern living, we're talking about habits. Most of my decisions, I make a jillion decisions each day. But I mean, like, I could get up right now, get naked, and sing Bohemian Rhapsody to you.
That's actually what I was saying. What I'm saying is, we do pattern living. We can't fight it, so we have to go along with it. But we have to look at the patterns that we live, and we get to decide if we like it or not, and do something about it.
No, I can't even say that. Sorry. This is the problem. And it was beautifully captured by a philosopher named Charles Sanders Peirce, who takes on Descartes. Descartes says, question everything, question all your patterns. And Peirce says, you couldn't possibly do that. You have no idea how many patterns you're living by. I'm living on an accumulation of patterns that is 3.8 billion years old. I am not going to question all of those patterns. I don't have time in the day to question all those patterns. The only things that rise to consciousness, in my experience, are doubts. That is, if I can handle something by habit, I will handle it by habit. And only when the habit's not working or I can't find a habit does it rise up through emotions and into consciousness. I am mostly a creature of habit. And the question, and I am addicted to my habits. That is, I do dedicated work to maintain them. And 100%. I mean that in a good way. I actually have to maintain
There
these
you
habits.
go.
So I'm
So we
really
are,
great.
so
So I'm
you,
really grateful for my good working habits, my good working addictions. I love them.
so you're using different words, but we are on the same length. We're on the exact same length.
Okay.
We're on the exact, so I'm hearing where you're going. Hey, I got a question for you. What happens to the way you think if you don't solve for self-preservation any longer? Because a lot of what I'm hearing, is it has to do with protecting your physical structure, and you're constantly listening to if I don't do this, I might not be here, or if I do this, I might be here, vice versa. So what happens if you don't solve for your self-preservation? Meaning that if you would entertain that maybe there's life beyond what you're currently experiencing. So what happens to all of what you do? And I'm just poking that structure to make better or to understand. I'm not even, I just want to like
The
tap
answer is
into it.
simple. I'm dead and there's nothing left of me, period.
Okay. So what exactly? So what I'm saying is, what happens if you were to? I'm not saying that's what your belief is.
I would die.
So yes. So what happens to everything you're talking about if you don't solve for self-preservation?
I die. I've said it 3 times.
So then you die right now. If you wouldn't solve for self-preservation.
If I stop generating 240 billion new cells every day, I die. Period. Simple.
Okay.
And
perfect.
I do not believe, I'm someone who doesn't believe when I'm gone, I'm gone. I'm like a bubble you saw in 1983. I'm gone. That is, because I have an explanation for what selves are, I have also, out of that falls out a assumption about what happens to me when I'm gone. And it's not the popular assumption. The popular romantic assumption is that you end up transformed or transcendent or something like that. No, I don't have that problem. I don't have that belief, and I'm also perfectly fine with it. I'm totally okay with that. In the meantime, I don't think any organism could actually stop trying for self-regeneration, what you call self-preservation. I don't think it's possible. You can talk about it. We can imagine it. Given that we have language, we can die for things. We can die for God or country. We can pretend, we can assume that we are identifying with something and dying for a higher power or something like that. That's a human thing, but it's an overlay. So yeah, you'll get people who will commit suicide. You'll get people who will die in battle and all of that. That's an unusual thing.
So explain to me this. So I have a little puppy. He's not here right now.
Yeah.
I have a little puppy. And so he's a dog, right? And so we're all versions. People say animals, right? So we all have, if that's the theory, whatever it is. Yeah. So Charlie is his name. He's a little multi-poo. Charlie's a little timid dog, but actually he's a very humble dog. When I pet Charlie, I think sometimes when he comes to me, he's looking for significance. But what I sometimes appreciate is when he comes to me, he's just saying life is significant. But here's the thing about an animal. Consciousness, an animal looks for what's most dangerous and what's most safe. That's what the animal does constantly. But you and I can stare out the window and not be thinking or focusing on where is there greater danger or where is there more safety. You and I can just stare out into the abyss. The human mind, the human consciousness can go beyond what the animal can do. Okay. So by the way, I'm not here to try to convert you to a different way of thinking. Hey, my friend, if you enjoy that, you enjoy what you enjoy.
No, actually, I want to say something about that. I don't find self-reporting very convincing. If someone says to me, hey, I'm not trying to do something, I'll make my own assessment of what's going on. But thank you. There are big differences between us and animals. That's right. Why I do all that work on the origins of language. I think that that's actually pretty fundamental and worth noting, and it's related to what you're talking about. That is we are a vastly more anxious species than animals are, because we can imagine so many more potential threats or missed opportunities. So if you compare what a dog could worry about to what a human could, just the quantity of things that are available to us. And the other part about language is that it enables us to ignore, deny, basically deflect anxieties. So that's kind of fundamental to my work in psychoproctology.
So I love it.
Dogs don't, you don't get, there are plenty of animal predators and, and parasites, but there aren't assholes. Assholes are a human thing. And it comes about because we are an unusually anxious species and unusually good at basically rationalizing our way out of uncomfortable feelings.
So to the point, the animal has anxiety levels. So does the human. What makes the human is that we have greater anxieties, greater imaginations, because we have third option, different imaginations. So we have another option that makes our experience one where we can choose. It's not dualistic living. It's not good or bad, always sourcing for good or bad, always right or wrong, always moralizing the crap out of everything. And I know you split morality at a good and bad, and I can appreciate that. But here's the thing, we have a third option. So because we have the third option creates so much imagination, and I'm not solving for an end game here, I'm having a dialogue, right? There's so much imagination that we literally can choose if something is coming to get us, or if there's supports of life looking to come alongside what's going on. So when you think about, I got a question for you.
Wait a second, I want to, so whenever anybody gives me a formula for what we can do or what we should do, I look for counterexamples. So there's an easy one, because not to negate it, but to notice that there's a dilemma in it. Mm-hmm. So if someone tells me love is the answer, I don't look just for the ways in which love is the answer. I look for ways in which love is the problem, or love is the, yeah. So
loving, I think Nazis, that's the smartest. Trump, I think that's the most intellectual thing to do, because at the heart of anything and everything good must lie a problem for it to actually be good or be alive. But go ahead. Yeah.
We may disagree about this. I still think we're trying to make better bets, and that means that there is good or bad from a perspective. It's subjective. We're trying to figure it out, but there is a difference between good or bad. I do not assume that all things have their all pain is a precious gift. If I did, then I would gift myself all day by ramming my head into my wall. So I don't come to that conclusion. But let me give you a scenario in which someone has a pathology and it's causing people a lot of pain, and these people around them are actually giving them a hard time about it. Let's take a Donald Trump or someone like that. And Donald Trump, actually grew up on the teachings of one of these romantics. What was his name? Power Positive Thinking. It was Norman Vincent Peale.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. And Peale says, well, see the blessing in all of that, and transcend it, and whatever you do, maintain your sense of dignity. Obviously, this is problematic. So when I find a problem like that, then I look for, okay, well, what's the distinction that actually makes a difference here? When is it good and when is it bad to employ this third option that you suggest? Because I have already convinced myself, because I can come up with a counterexample to it being the right thing to do. It means that it's sometimes the right thing to do and sometimes the wrong thing to do.
There's always a benign and hostile side. It always is. Because do the right thing at the wrong time. I think, who was it? I think Tony Robbins says this. Do the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing to do. Do the right thing at the right time is always the right thing to do. So sequentially, that's the importance of it. But I love it. Go ahead. Yeah, you just keep going.
That's fine. It's also circular. Trying to figure out what's the right and wrong time to do things is the question. So that's why I would ask this next question. Under what circumstances is it right to take your third option? And in what circumstances is it not right to take your third option? That's how I keep the inquiry going. So I'm very aware of what I'll call, I once was lost, but now I'm blind syndrome, which is I have a revelation, and it felt so good to me that I feel like it's the last revelation I'm ever going to need, and I've got it figured out now. Just when you discover the meaning of life, it changes. I was going to mention this before. The biggest cosmic wedgie from Darwin is not that we ascended from apes or that God has a diminished role. It's that there are no surefire formulas. You get a formula, and it should raise next questions. So for me, that's kind of the heart of it. And I would say that this is also where I got my peace of mind by stopping paying attention to, and I was lucky I haven't had to do self-promotion. But because I mean, that was a late revelation. Around 56, I suddenly realized, wait a second. If I don't need status to keep keep food on the table, what do I need status for? Am I going to make a difference in this world? The world is overwhelmed with people trying to make a difference in it. My chances of making much of a dent in it are pretty small. That gave me the freedom to actually continue to think it up a notch. So I come up with the formula, and I have a limerick about it. Having found a solution that fits, I like to kick back and just sit on my laurels, but then a resulting dilemma proves questions in life just don't quit. So it's like so when I hear a formula, I think about the counterexamples, and then it poses for me a question. Okay, so when does this formula apply? Because there are lots of formulas.
Your brain and my brain work so similar. What did you just say before? Not lost, now I'm found. What did you say?
I once was lost, but now I'm blind.
I love that so much, and here's why. If ever you're found, you no longer do anything. You no longer, there's nothing left. There's nothing left. There's absolutely nothing left. So you and I, so similar. Like, I'm not an atheist, but I am atheist to a lot of when I say atheism, oh, my friend, anytime you can pinpoint and say it's exactly like this, I'm an atheist to that, because it might be so in this situation, but it might not be so. How can two truths with opposite, how can you have two truths and you come to them in two different ways completely? You say two different. So when you talk about lost, now I'm blind. It's like this, and you reference, and I don't need to say, Donald J, there you go. Transcendence with exclusion is very different than transcendence with inclusion. And so my work, when it comes to weekly wins and losses, has all to do with that. We take everything that life has given us, and we let it serve us for a meaningful purpose. To your reference point, I don't go bang my head against the wall and be like, I like pain like that. What we do is we all experience the resistance of certain things, often their emotions or feelings. So if they generate pain, if they bring us pressure, why not utilize what is there so we transcend by including them, so that they can drive us not to a greater play of being unbeneficial and more supporting more of our hierarchy needs or status needs, but more of a beneficial human. How can we let what is happening, let this be the very thing that keeps us involved, that has us not desire to end the story? If you ever want to be like, end the story, you say, I was lost, I'm found. Well, the story's over. Like, I find it ironic. Like, for example, I am a Christian, but a Christian not in a religious way. And so oftentimes the religious, that whole community, and it's just the way I find my way to like part of love and part of life. And I love the stories. But if you ever want to end the story, you just say you have no doubt. If you have no doubt, you can build no faith. So the very thing that they're doing is they're saying they sell certainty. So the religious, the orthodoxy community anyway. I mean, I'm not against what they do it to do it. If it helps, great. If it brings relief, but I think it must bring us to responsibility. But if all that it ends up doing is it brings people to their self-supported desire for certainty, all of that will do is that'll support that I'm significant, I'm going to make it in, not thinking what actually the whole narration about life is about. Meaning the whole life play is I may be tribe X, and I mean tribal, I mean that's antiquated talk. But what I'm saying is, how is it that you can be the good news to me? How is it that something totally different can help us forward? Right. And so my take, so when I listen, my take is, I heard earlier, and I want to ask you about this. So I want to draw you back to something you said. And I thought this brilliant. You said this. Absolute. I've never heard somebody make inference towards two words in such a unique way. And these words for you were efficient and effective. My question is, why is the play of being insecure? The other day on Twitter, Elon Musk had a little funny thing, like laugh my ass off, he said, because there was Donald Trump. He posted that back in the day when Elon came to him and wanted support for his cars, Donald Trump said he would have done anything and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, and so it's the sign of an insecure human. So why is insecurity, why is the play of being insecure so efficient? Because what you're saying is effective is what we want. Efficiency, it's honestly, it's the simplest thing we do. The pattern living solves for efficiency. Am I saying that correct? What you're saying earlier. And why is it that, right? So why is insecurity living? Why is that so efficient? Why?
Why
Meaning,
is, you're going to have to unpack this a little bit for me. What do you mean by insecurity living, and what do you mean by it being efficient?
okay. So earlier you said, so you talked about durability, and then you talked about,
Yeah, I'm saying that inanimate things are durable. We're not very durable.
that's right. And what you're saying is the easiest thing, and what we are always, well, please help me out. You said what is most efficient is what? So to your point, so to track you back.
It depends on circumstances.
Okay.
But I am saying that that there's a tendency in all of life to take paths of least resistance. And you could say the difference between efficient and effective, you can use them synonymously, but effective points a little bit more to what your aims are, what your goals are, what you're trying to do. So you can have someone who's very efficient at producing very ineffective, or they're basically good means to bad ends, is one way to talk about that. But if you're saying what insecure living, why is it so efficient? What do you mean by that?
Let me go back to that. So just back to, I'm just going to slow it down. Back to the tweet that I saw that Elon Musk had posted. Donald Trump said, "Hey, listen, I had basically had Elon Musk in the palm of my hand." And he was boasting about how he controlled insecure manhood, femininehood, whatever it ends up being.
I think I finally get the question.
Yeah. So why is it? And of course, he gets away with it most of the time. For some people, not. For me, he doesn't. Donald J. Trump doesn't get away with being insecure and me thinking that's helpful. For some of the world, why is it so efficient for most people? Like, it's efficient. It gets the message across. Is it that
answer for your question?
Is it that, and I want to hear your answer, but part of my thinking is it that we would rather onboard a simplistic, convenient lie than fight for the hard truth?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, and this does relate to the role of theology and other forms of, you could say, romantic narrative.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's very. Let me see how to put this. Doubt is uncomfortable. And if you get enough of it, you end up with self-doubt, doubt about whether you have what it takes to deal with doubt. So there would be a human appetite, since we can imagine all sorts of things, to imagine ourselves romantically having landed on this plateau where we are perfectly safe and perfectly free. And that would be free of doubt. And it would play out in conflict. It would play out as what I'll call an infallibility battle. And I would guess that that's what we've got between Musk and Trump at this point. Infallibility is very attractive. It's disgusting if you are the victim of it, but if you can align with it and you can feel infallible, basically playing God too, it's going to feel good to you. You can pretend that you can be a legend in your own mind. You can pretend that you are perfectly safe and perfectly free. So, I've quipped that it's true, Biden is a lot worse president than Trump pretended to be. Trump, all Trump has really got going is a pretend a continuous winning streak based on simply ignoring, deflecting all. I mean, really, for an asshole, all you got to do is, if it's positive, you make it about you, and if it's negative, you make it about your rivals. That's all it is.
Right.
Any idiot can do that.
Yeah.
All it takes is paying no attention to content. You
There
just
you
pay
go.
attention to the flavor of words.
Mhm.
And if it sounds good, it's about you. I've had so many Trump supporters tell me that they're critical thinkers. They out the box. I mean, like in our first encounter, they want to tell me that they're a critical thinker. Why? It's because of what the cool kids are wearing. That's all. They don't have no idea what it is, what a patriot is, what a Christian is. They're not paying any attention to that. It sounds good. So it's the bling that they ornament themselves with. So I understand that appetite. I have that appetite in me too, to pretend that I'm infallible.
That's smart.
And I play it out in fiction. And so this is on the preventative side of being how to keep people from being assholes. I think we need an outlet for that. I think human life is so anxious that we need to exercise our delusions of grandeur. But I'm interested in how to do that safely, what I'll call optimal illusion or safe escapism. So I'm going to give you some examples of ways in which humans do this. I can play a video game in which I'm a badass and I shoot up all the villains. I can watch a movie in which and I can imagine myself as brave enough to obviously do what the hero does, even though no, chances are I'd be scared shitless and would be inclined to not do it. I can masturbate and picture that I am God's gift to the gender of interest. I can go to church and pretend that I am among the chosen destined for heaven, while all the other people who chose fallible paths fallible paths are going to rot in hell. I can go to a Trump rally and chant along with words without paying attention to what they mean, and feel like a badass and get all in cosplay and feel all like we're the wise ones. I can go to a death metal concert and chant along with the lyrics. I'm not paying attention to what they mean. They just sound hella badass and I'm cosplay. What's the difference between these? The difference is in what happens after it's over. If after you do that escapism, you zip up or go back to your car and return to reality, it's safe escapism. If instead you go through that stuff and you come out of it thinking you've experienced something realer than reality, it's dangerous.
And then more real than reality. And now you become the thing that you are promoting people toward and saying that's the thing.
Right, that's right. So you make you make your little something into everything, and you go out and you promote it to everybody. And in the meantime, you've lost touch with reality, and the more you lose touch with it, the more disorienting and unsatisfying it would be to return to it. So for me, it's not about how far out you go; it's about whether you remember to come back.
It's like often what they say, listen. So it's like to your point, often, for example, the overt religious community, they'll say, hey, listen, we're just doing this to protect you. Really what they're doing beneath the protection is they're wanting power. And what's beneath the power is that so that they can actually control you. That's really what it is. So to convert, to your point, it's constantly converting, saying, I got the answer. You want my answer, don't you?
Right. And I wouldn't put it past any of us. Not you, not me, not any of us.
I mean, I am laughing because, for example, the other day I received a text. And why is it that the human, when we observe what the other person, let's say, is texting or saying, why do we, it's like this thought. We see it, we observe it, and we feel threatened. And we're thinking, well, I don't know if I feel good about this myself, but really what we're thinking is we don't know if we should be okay that they're thinking this. So then what we tend to do is we tend to want to rescue them because we believe that our way of living is the safest way of living. And that's like the asshole within us. Right. That's the significance coming to our, but so I got two questions for you, and we got to wrap the show up. It's been fantastic. I would like at some point in time to get on to podcast number 2 where we talk decision theory. I think that'd be fascinating. So
in a way, we've already been talking about that.
Well, I think so. I totally right. Yeah. And so here's the question. First question. So earlier I said, why is being insecure so efficient? The next question is, why is and how is being secure in yourself so effective? Now, I don't mean to create a good or bad. Well, the reason I ask this, and I'm asking from the perspective of you once being, like I think you said before, a fucking asshole, full of yourself, right? And then what happened
I
is
didn't say that.
oh, sorry, you did. Oh, I thought you did. Sorry, I didn't know you said this, but
No,
you
it
were
could
an
be.
asshole early.
It could
Sorry.
be. No, no, I didn't say it. Could be true, but
No,
I think I heard you say it. Actually, you said you were an
sorry.
asshole.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I would imagine that I was that for sure. Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, thank you for that.
I wouldn't put it
appreciate.
past me.
Okay. Well, sorry if I didn't mean to offend.
That's
Uh,
okay. I'm not offended. I'm saying I wouldn't put it past me.
yeah.
For all I
Okay.
know, I mean, most assholes are the last ones to know that they're assholes. So it could be.
You could be okay. So, but the reason I asked this question, how is secure play so effective? Meaning, if you're secure, if you know your biases, or if you're not weighing out, if you're not saying I'm better than, so you are obviously in a better state of living now than you were then.
I think so. That's my bet.
So it's more effective. It's more, and your bet is it's more effective. And I would say to you, I think it's more effective, but it's just you and I. But what I'm saying is, why is a person being secure so effective? And how is it that we can all be more effective?
So I think the most interesting question there is, why is being insecure so efficient? It's being insecure is efficient within a certain context. The question is, can you get yourself out of the context? You asked the question, why is insecure
but I'm
so efficient?
Yeah, but I'm solving from a place of how to be a beneficial human, how to be a
that's
most
right. That's right. But do you want an answer to the question, why is insecurity so efficient?
Well, first answer that, and then answer, and if you'd like to answer, why is secure living or secure play so effective? So I'm not trying to make effective good and efficient bad, but for the sake of the audience here, let's just, because earlier you said the easiest thing to do, the thing that requires least courage, and I forget what it was you said, but that's the most efficient thing that we can do. It's the most efficient thing you do, but it's not beneficial to the human. So therefore, I'm saying, why is insecure play?
No, I can only answer within my framing,
Please.
and I'm not sure that it conforms. I can't tell whether it conforms to the framing of the questions. But here's what I want to say. No, insecure is not efficient. So the way I think of it is that we handle most things by habit. What rises to consciousness is that which is not efficient. That is, when my habits don't work, I'm likely to wonder about them. I don't wonder about habits that are working well. Insecurity is doubt. You get enough doubt, you get self-doubt. Why do people get trapped in a place of self-doubt? What I was talking about earlier is this anxious duck and tuck strategy, where you can't have an effective conversation with someone because they're so busy trying to position themselves so that they're never in under the words that sound bad. Oh, no, I'm not closed-minded. Forget about whether I want to be closed-minded and open-minded in the right ways, not the wrong ways. So the idea that if someone said, you're closed-minded, Jeremy, I say, yeah, no, that's right. I want to be closed and open in the right ways. I don't believe that being completely open-minded works. I'm trying to keep an open mind, but I don't want my brains to spill out, all of that sort of stuff. So, but there are people who are so anxious that it becomes extremely ineffective, if you mean it that way. To be secure in yourself, there are a few different ways to go at it. I can simply say that I lucked out. I would say it's dumb luck into a way that makes me feel secure. Once again, I want to flag, I could be an asshole.
So is it the humility that doubt brings in your life? Is it the humility that doubt creates? Because doubt's a gift.
That's what it is. That is what it is. And recognizing that I'm human, that is to treat this as an introspective experience. I'm this mid-sized mammal that recently got language and then got slammed by technology. And I am living in an incredible cluster flux, and it's a sitcom. And it's a sitcom that's also a tragic comedy. That is, we may, in the course of my own lifetime, see the end of humanity. I mean, it's dire. And yet at the same time, it's also a hoot to watch us running around like we are. I would say that any intelligent life form in the universe, intelligent here being defined as being able to use languages, symbols, which is a different kind from what animals do. That is, we can imagine anything, animals can't. Any organism in the universe that had language would be dealing with the same kind of clusterfuck we would. And would, so for example, I think any organism in the universe would experience would be dealing with climate change and climate change denial. That is, denial is something you can do with language. So I understand there are lots of different ways to find a kind of self-acceptance, but I would say that ironic fallibilism is the richest one. That is, to recognize that this is dire and it's slapstick, and to therefore place bets, confident bets, but still with a wink, knowing that your bet could be wrong. And I think that probably is very resonant with your approach.
I absolutely love it. The final two little mini questions. Just contemplate this for a second, Jeremy. And my listeners, I often ask the question, where do you struggle most? If you want to answer that question along these other two, you can. So that would be number one. If you want to answer three mini questions, the question 2 and 3. Question 2, what is, and you've already said that doubt is clearly a gift for you, because doubt has kept you humble. And doubt has brought you to the fact of, I might be making the wrong bet, which makes you open to another perspective. You might be certain for you, but it makes you open. So question 2 is, where else has doubt served you in a helpful way? And question 3, let's just leave that open for now. So the 2 questions: where do you struggle most in
and
life?
I can answer them both the same way. The metaphor may be trite, but it actually, I think, is borne out by the origins of life research. I think of my life as trying to maintain control of a car that's driving on a winding road that winds in lots of different directions. And it's actually a road that's crowded with other people, and the road isn't actually GPS. There's no GPS for this winding road. And I could elaborate to say it's winding on many dimensions. That is, it's a road where I'm trying to maintain the right balance of lots of different facets. I have to watch both sides of the road to stay alive, which means that my doubts that are by now quite familiar, because I've spent decades now not just experiencing them, but actually studying them as a decision theorist, they're always opposite sides. So my equanimity, my peace of mind comes from worrying equally about whether I'm too assertive or not assertive enough. Worry about whether I'm too accommodating, not accommodating enough. There are 2 sides to the road. I'm not trying to avoid one or the other. When I find out that I'm too close to, when I guess, I don't find out, I guess that I'm too close to one side or the other, I adjust. It's as simple as that. So you could say it comes down to the serenity prayer. The God isn't, to me, the wisdom is the questing to get better, to make better bets about the differences that make a difference to what one should do. But I do assume that I'm going to be adjusting all life long, that I am a learner, not learned, and not learned out. I actually have to keep on learning and adjusting. But when I get, this last week, 4 people said I was too assertive, and each one of them implied a rule that assertion never works. Bullshit. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Sometimes assertiveness works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes getting harsh feedback stings at first, but you end up learning from it anyway. So when I get that kind of advice, I stress or worry or doubt about whether I am too assertive or not assertive enough. And when I don't doubt that stuff, I'm just running by intuition. And that's what I suppose from the outside someone could say is humble, but I don't get to say that about myself. I don't get to say I'm humble.
No, and you know what? That's the most precious thing you've said here. I think
that's the most precious.
Yeah.
Now I'm insulted. I was feeding you beauties.
No, everything you said was wonderful. I've had a wonderful conversation. No, I love it.
I'm making fun.
No, yeah, exactly. But to me, it's the most precious thing, because to me, it's a revelation of when I tapped into when I listened to some of your videos and I watched them and some of your work. You're a fun play to engage with, because it seems to me like you've released yourself into the being. It's like you said earlier, I'm going to botch this, but trying to not try or whatever it is, but you reckon what humanity is, and you also know that if you don't bring into proper temperance exactly who you are, like you're not everyone, or some people would say you're not God, or you're not, no, you keep yourself in a place of openness. You keep yourself in a place of open debate, and without doubt, what ends up happening is we just think we're the shit spot. We think our perspective is universal truth. And all of a sudden, right. And now we get to play God, and now we get to like inflict this on other people. And then apparently we say we're not trying to control them to the finish line, but that's kind of what we're doing. And so what I'm hearing you say is that this doubt piece, it's like, yeah, it can go to wrongful doubt or like not beneficial doubt. But I love it because you have taken the very thing, instead of trying to fill your doubts. And that's what makes me the person who I am. The thing I love about, for example, my faith, it's an inclusive faith the way I choose it, but I don't need to fill my faith. It's the only one. Yeah, I got to be careful. Back off of this right now for your languaging. But to me, I don't have to fill, and I like it. I can see my lack, and I get to enjoy my lack. I don't have to fill my lack. I get to just be with it. And it's like, my friend, it's been a treat. It's been an absolute wonder. But I want to leave you, or I want to ask you the final thing. What do you struggle with most? So I asked you earlier, but I am really curious. What do you struggle with most? Like, honestly, what's your struggle?
I'm 66. I'm having a time of my life. I'm having a good time. I'd like to keep it going as long as possible. Nothing immediately comes to mind. So I'm going to fill this space instead by saying,
please,
that I like the weight of this man's heart is to laugh at me with me. Oh. And to imply and to allow reciprocation. That is, this is the ironic attitude. I am amazed by what I can get away with saying, as long as I signal, not just with declarations. Declarations don't work. Exactly. Signal, you show that you know you're a bozo on this bus. You do not get to pull rank. I don't get to pull rank. I am another schmuck among schmucks trying to find our way on this planet. And if you feel that in your bones, and you let that be obvious, with a lot of self-effacing humor, it's incredible what you can get away with saying, because it keeps you out of this thing that I would call an infallibility battle. Infallibility battle is either I'm right about everything and you're wrong about everything, or vice versa. Deadly. You can't have a good conversation that way. So it's been a pleasure to be on your show.
It's been fantastic. So I just want to share with you, in whatever this means to you. But firstly, listeners, close your eyes for a second and just say the word, or hear me say this: psychoproctologist. He's a psychoproctologist. It's like an ass doctor. He's not a doctor, but think about this. How effective is it?
I am a doctor. I have a PhD. Say ah.
How effective, isn't it, when we can laugh? So my friend, Jeremy, keep us laughing, my friend. It's super effective. It's been a pleasure. How can people find you?
It's easy. If you look up my name on Google, you'll find way too much of me. And I have a repository where it all is. It's just jeremysherman.com. But just Google me, you'll find, I'm just kind of, I'm prolific. Some would say verbal diarrhea.
Oh my goodness. It's been so good. And at some point in time, we may have another show. And you're right. Decision theory, I think to a large degree, we've discussed much of that, but anyway, love it. Awesome. Okay. It was a pleasure. Thanks for being on the show, sir.
Thank you.
With inflation rates rising, interest rates shooting up, gas prices skyrocketing, and the continued global unrest, it's easy to find what's wrong in the world. Tony Robbins says, what's wrong in the world is always available, but so is what's right. Instead of trying to hope and wish the world into a better place, it's time to make the most important decision any of us can ever make, and that is to invest in yourself. Now, you already know that I've always stood with you as you've navigated the uncertainties of life's reality. However,
It's now high time that I step up and take decisive action to walk alongside your current life journey by making myself available to you in a radically new way during these challenging times. For a limited time, I'm inviting you to a 45-minute strategic business life consultation at no charge and no strings attached. This consultation is where you'll regain the reins of your life. It's where you'll gain clarity on exactly why you're stuck, moving you directly towards your optimal outcomes. I'm humbled to say, however, my clients' generous reflection of their time spent with me reveals the truth. The skills they've been able to master in a short period of time by engaging in our one-on-one strategic sessions have changed their lives in so many ways. This is the only invitation that I can fathom that will put my skin in the game of your life in such a way that will allow us to address your specific needs with precision and excellence. 45 minutes, just you and I, together on a call to get you headed in the direction you crave most. Here's what my clients report after our one-on-one sessions: a decrease in indecision, an increase in clarity, confidence, and courage, an increase in fully being able to capitalize on what's directly in front of them, an increase in impact at work, on their families, and on their communities, a decrease in pain and suffering, and a decrease in anxiety. So, if you want to move beyond old stories, get clear on where you're headed so that you can shake your world, then here's a rich opportunity for you today. Simply go to www.jameshepner.com and stay on the page for about 45 seconds or so, and you'll see a little pop-up appear that will allow you to book in your business life consultation with me. This offer will expire and fill up. Maximizing this opportunity will set you up to reclaim and regain any of your inner power that has slowly been drawn down over these challenging times. And remember, if you want to stop the self-sabotage, raise your standards, and participate with unshakable confidence, you'll want to take the Maximize Your Life quiz found at www.jameshepner.com/quiz right now. My sincere hope is that you've gleaned a few nuggets for yourself and a few pieces of interest that help you move forward in your unique journey. So again, I thank you for joining me here. This is James Hepner clocking out. Until next time, peace out, rock up.